Hello, dear beloveds. Well, I am just back from quite an unusual trip, returning from the third level retreat, which finished on Monday morning in Bali, and arriving home last night at about midnight. And on the way home, I went via Perth, where my family live, to attend my grandmother's funeral. So I want to share kind of what this journey has been like because, I go to Bali twice a year to run third level retreats. But this is the first time, of course, that I've had anyone close to me pass away, and particularly inside of the container of the third level retreat, which is a very intense journey. It has been a really epic up-leveling, I would say, and a really deep initiation into my heart in a way that, I always feel like it's simply not possible that my heart would kind of break open wider. And then, of course, life is designed to crack our hearts open, not so that we are broken, but so that we can see that they don't break down, they break open, and we're capable of loving in ways that we didn't even realize. And that's really what this time has been for me. So I want to share some of that with you. And, alongside of the events of what was happening for me, this incredible group of women traveled from all over the world. Literally, of this group of 13 women, 6 of them were coming from the Northern Hemisphere: Luxembourg, Ireland, the Netherlands, the US, the UK. I'm missing one in there somewhere else. A really truly international cohort, all arriving in Mama Bali for the 8 days of the third level retreat. And for those of you who don't know, the third level is our year-long training offered by the Institute to train women in the archetypes of the priestess, mystic, leader, and they qualify as clinically trained intuitive guides. And our work in the Institute is to take intuition beyond a vagary to something that has laser-like precision. And we do that particularly through looking for and releasing subconscious fear from the subtle anatomy of our clients. So we're fear hunters, and we step into our work, our power to serve, in a really big way, because the tools of the intuitive guide are so precise and so accurate, and cut through all of the kind of noise. There can be a lot of misinformation that's shared in the name of intuition, and it's my vision and my mission to change that, and these women are the ones who are doing it. And so this retreat, of course, was my grandmother, my Nana, Betty is her name, died on the first morning of the retreat, or in the night. So we began on a Monday night, and she passed away at 12:30 on the Tuesday morning, a.m. And I found out about 5:30 a.m. on the Tuesday morning, just before our first welcome ceremony with the local Giro priestess, Lou Manis, and her team. And it was a really powerful thing to go into that welcome ceremony, which is a water ceremony where they come to us and they bring the water, and they, really cleanse and purify us and prepare us for the work of the retreat that we're going to do, which is very deep work. And to be able to be in that space with this very new information that my Nana had passed away, which was something we were expecting. She had terminal lung cancer, but the timing was, of course, unknown, as death is very often. So it was a real cracking wide open, and I was so powerfully supported by the lead mentors of the Institute, in particular Amy Towle of Temple of She, and Gemma Sykes, and the peer mentors as well. We had 2 peer mentors from the postgraduate program joining us this time, Kim Fazzolari and Bree Jones, and to just know that along with these women, plus the 13 of the priestesses who were coming in to do their training, there was no better place for me, and it actually felt like an incredible privilege to be held in that environment. And I found out that my grandmother's funeral would be on the Tuesday afterwards. So the retreat finished a week later on the Monday, and then I flew straight to Perth. And her funeral was Tuesday, just 2 days ago. So it feels like it's been a really epic ride, and I thought it would be, before it all sort of dissolves and life starts again, I wanted to honour my Nana and also honour the 13 women who have gone on this remarkable journey. And all of what was happening for me aside, what they did and who they were was so fascinating to us. Every retreat is different. And, the archetypal energy of the women who come into the retreat, what they create as the group is always unique. And it's always so fascinating to see who are we going to meet. The mentors and I are always incredibly excited to see who is it that we're going to meet, what kind of archetypal energy will be here. And these women were, we also have a lot of a disproportionate number of mothers in this program. So, and I don't mean like these people have one kid. We have women in this program who have, some of them have 5 children, 4 children, multiple women who had 3 children. And for them to leave their homes and their lives for 8 days, and if not longer because of travel time, to come into the Mystics Cave and to immerse themselves in this training is a huge, huge deal. And I know at least one of them who had delayed joining the 3rd level for a number of intakes because of that fear of walking away from her family. And we often as women, and particularly women on the spiritual path, feel that kind of that split or that divide in our beings between our desire to be, in the mother archetype and to be with our families and to be in that energy, and also to be the mystic. And those two roles are really hard to reconcile a lot of the time. I found my way. I found it quite easy, but it took a lot of courage to get to the point where I would regularly leave my family behind to do my work and to go into the Mystics Cave. And I really bow to each of these women, because we had something like 400 children were left at home. That's not true. It wasn't that many, but it was many children. And I could really feel their courage in not only leaving and coming into this space, which feels for a lot of them having to deal with fear of selfishness, of what would happen to their relationships, what would their partners think of them, but also the kind of exhaustion that comes with being in that mother energy, to suddenly step out of that and to find yourself just with all the weight of that lifted. I mean, your bed's being made, your food's being prepared, there's no children to look after. I am getting you up early to do your devotion, but there's so much space. A lot of the time in our breaks, we have beautiful breaks in the middle of the day. They go off and have massages and body treatments and flower petal baths, and this is not at all like life at home, and that's part of why we do this in Mama Bali, so that absolute pleasure of going into the Mystics Cave and doing the deep work is sitting there and offering them a way to perceive themselves differently. And all of the women rose to that. And of course, what we're really doing there is it's not all luxury and baths with flower petals in it. We work really, really hard. But the work you're so powerfully held, not just by me and the mentors, but by the fact that you're in an environment where you don't have to take care of your basic needs, and you're in Mama Bali, and the medicine of Mama Bali is so profound. It is the womb, and it's this nourishment, and it cracks us open. It allows us to meet ourselves in an accelerated way at deeper and deeper levels. And that's exactly what all of these women did. I think the mentors and I have never worked quite as hard, but in that energy, we also got more excited about the power of this work and the power of the transformation, and the possibilities that these women were showing us, moving from fear to love, and being so willing to overcome their own self-doubt and their fear that they weren't able to do it, and that they weren't good enough, or what I was asking of them was too much, or whatever it was. Every kind of fear rises in that environment, and true healing is to be willing to meet our fear, to be humble enough to meet our fear every damn day, and to never forget that is actually the only healing that is possible, is to meet and release subconscious fear. There is nothing else is a healing at all, and there's lots and lots of ways to do that. But if we're not looking at how is the subconscious fear impacting my subtle anatomy and reducing the flow of or connection between me and the infinite, then we're kind of missing the point of what healing is. Healing is always a return to love. Healing is always that movement from dark to light. It is always about being willing to sit in the shadow and to be unafraid of the discomfort that brings, because fear is not the problem. Fear is the friendly ally leading us home. So we had this incredible week together, and at the same time, as I was seeing a totally different group than I've ever experienced before, and having to really rise and be willing to hold them when their doubt was there or when their fear was there. Doubt is fear, but in all the ways that their their fear was showing up for them and making them believe that possibly they weren't ready to do this work, I had to step up, as the mentors did as well, and really hold them even more strongly, because I trust the process, and to say, you know, I can tell you 100 million times, you've got this, you're going to do it, but you have to witness it and you have to experience it firsthand. So we really had to be agile and responsive, as I am with every retreat, but we really had to mix things up quite a bit and to give them the opportunity to meet themselves in that way. And we did that. At the same time, of course, I was feeling my heart cracking open in response to the death of my nana, and feeling the kind of a deep gratitude to her and the honoring of her life, to be unafraid to, like, I cried quite a lot for me in the Shala, in our teaching space. If you've ever hung out with me, you know that is not something I normally do, but to be able to stay present to the pain, or the kind of exquisite pain of the grief of letting her go, but at the same time being aware that this was an initiation into a deeper relationship with love, and to love unconditionally means that my love isn't requiring her to be alive. I can accept what is, but to be in that space while holding these women as they did their training was really quite phenomenal. And I you know, most nights I would collapse into bed totally exhausted, but with this feeling of deep soul satisfaction, this feeling of absolute love pouring through me in ways that I hadn't experienced. So the retreat, for those of you who haven't been on the retreat before, you know, our days are long. We start at 6 a.m. with devotion, and we spend an hour in our devotional practices, which are usually a combination of silent meditation. But I really took the women through a sadhana that I use, which is, first we meet our fear. So we use our tools like the micro method and tapping. Then we do our chanting, we do our prayer, and we set our intention, and then we go into silent meditation. So I call this foreplay, like meditation foreplay. If you just sit down on that mat and you expect your body to be able to just get you into that beautiful state that meditation brings, you're not priming yourself for success. And so it's a really exciting thing to take the women into a deeper relationship with their devotion by showing them what's possible when we go through this kind of preparing ourselves to sit in the silence and the stillness and the solitude. After that, we would do yoga with Wayan, who is one of the part of the team of local priestesses who would come and support our work. And she did such amazing work with us, and such incredible pranayama in particular, which is breath work. We spent a lot of time being led by Wayan, you know, up to half an hour in really intense, beautiful pranayama practices, which, you know, breath work is one of the most powerful ways when we're working with subconscious fear and we're working the subtle anatomy. What integrates that, what shifts that energy is breath. And it was so beautiful to have that along with the asana of yoga. And she ends all of her classes with 1 minute of laughing, which of course she did for us this time, which was so beautiful. And then we have our breakfast, which is just glorious. And we come into the Shala between 9 to 12:30. And that's kind of the most intense bulk of the day learning. It's the coolest part of the day. And we learn the tools of the intuitive guide, and they learn by doing. You know, there's no point me saying all of these things if these women are not having a first-hand experience of them. So they work their asses off, and, you know, we start, our first day is meeting our own fear and getting out of our own way, and then we start to work with one another in pairs a lot of the time, doing the tools of the intuitive guide on one another in order to embody and have that experience of it. So at the same time that you're learning the tools, you're meeting your fear in this accelerated pressure cooker way. And it was really, you know, a number of the women on the last day said two things. Interestingly, that some of them would have liked to have punched me in the face at various times. God bless them. I am willing to be the leader who's unafraid of that. And none of them did, thankfully. And also that a number of them really wanted to run. Like, they didn't want to sit with the discomfort of meeting their shadow and increasing their power. They just wanted to get the hell out of there. And luckily none of them left in the middle of the night either. But it was, you know, it's a pressure cooker awakening, accelerated awakening process. And that's what I need of these women, because, you know, we have a year together, but the retreat is such a powerful space in order to get this vessel as clear as possible. You know, you are a channel for infinite non-local consciousness, and we really have to be willing to get over ourselves. And the rest of the year from now, I have absolute faith, because of the time we've spent together in person, that not only can we hold one another, that sister to sister, they can hold one another, but that we won't fall off the path now because we've had that first-hand experience together. And then in the middle of the day, we take a break. There's 2-3 beautiful pools at Ananda, and we really, go into, as I said, lots of people went and had body work done, really allowing yourself to reset and integrate the energy. And then the afternoon session from 3:30 to 5:30, including debrief time with their lead mentor, either Amy or Gemma, who is mentoring them throughout the program, to have time where I'm not in the shala, so they can talk about things like, I want to punch her in the face. God bless her. I don't think anyone admitted that to Amy or Gemma, but they, really get to kind of ask questions and go into it all and reflect, and and then in the evenings we'd either rest or we'd have circle after our dinner together, and working with the sacred feminine archetypes. We do an initiation, which is 108 repetitions of the Gayatri Mantra in the long form, which is incredibly powerful, and we do a lot of spiritual stamina building, and it's a profound experience. So the retreat ended, and we had such just such an incredible final circle sharing, and really that time of sharing and connecting to one another is just, there's so much content, there's so much learning that we're doing, but there's so much about giving yourself that opportunity to really feel and share and express what's going on for you, and that was done so beautifully on that last morning. And we were in an outdoor shala, so we're literally in the rice paddies, and there was a lotus flower that had been closed up the night before, and we had our party, we had an initiation, and we had a beautiful photo shoot with Nora Wendell on the final night. But this lotus had been closed, and then on that morning we all went into meditation, and when we opened our eyes, like half an hour later, the lotus had bloomed, and it was like she was blooming for us. And those women they just blossomed. They just went from fear to love, and just so much happened in that time. We often say it's indescribable, but I'm trying really hard to describe it to you because I don't want to be obtuse. I want to be as transparent as possible. But the shifts that happen in that pressure cooker, that beautiful container where you are so fiercely held, to break free of the limiting beliefs, the illusions, the doubt, anything that's holding you back from the truth of who you are. What we can do in a week in Bali is just unlike anything else. And then these women have returned now, and now they have to put in the hours to get really, really good at working as an intuitive guide before they do their final case studies, and other content will come along. Our next module is the ethics of working energetically, because it's so vital that we take so much responsibility for changing the conversation. Revolutionizing intuition means we hold ourselves to account and create the best practice models in the world that we can. And that's why it's a clinical training model. It is such a rigorous qualification. If you are awarded this qualification, you know that you've put in hundreds and hundreds of hours to get that qualification, and you've been assessed every step of the way, and you've been mentored and you've been guided, but you have to really show up to get this qualification. And I think that's one of the things that I am most proud of about this program, is this is not just a piece of paper. This is a deeply meaningful qualification, and the women who I award this to, you can trust implicitly. They are powerhouse intuitives. They will change your life. They are fear hunters, and they're not afraid to go where others don't know how to go, or simply will not go, because this work is so deep. And it's such a privilege to see this next group of women stepping into that power now. So now we have another, I don't know, we finish in December 30, so no, we don't. Yes, we do. Where are we? No, this group finishes June 30 next year. So we have a lot more to do together. And, there are 2 intakes a year. There is another group that's going to be finishing December 30. They were on retreat in May. And it is just such a privilege. So I then hopped on a plane. Normally I stay in Bali for a few days with the lead mentors, and we relax and we settle into what we've created, because we're usually all quite exhausted too, and just chill out. They, lie by the pool somewhere beautiful and just rest. But this time I needed to come directly back to Australia and go to my Nana's funeral. And yeah, it was such a privilege to be there and to be able to honor her passing. And she has 5 children. They were all there. and 9 grandchildren, and we were all there. And like my cousin had flown in, he's in the army, and he had flown in from the Middle East, where he's I know there's a proper word for it, where he's been sent, and I flew in from Bali, which isn't that far away, and all of us flew in from all over Australia to be there to honour our Nana. And it was a beautiful ceremony, and just such a beautiful thing to be able to, I guess, have this initiation. As I said, I don't want to make it all about me, but I feel like what she offered me was a way to find even more understanding of what love is, and to have my heart cracked wide open. And you know, her funeral and the day of her funeral was actually there was such a sense of joy in it for me. And I'd been very sad up until then, but when I got there, it was like I was so happy I hadn't missed it. And I wasn't, you know, if it had been halfway through the retreat, I wouldn't have been able to leave my priestesses. And I talked about that with my mum and my auntie, and we'd agreed. And I think, you know, my work is, you know, for these women, my love for them is so deep. I couldn't have left them. I wouldn't have left them. So it was just divine timing that I was able to be there. And I flew home from Perth last night. I got home about midnight. So I feel a little bit out of body right now. I feel like I've been on a lot of planes in the last few weeks. But it's good to be home, and it's good to be able to sit now with these feelings and just really be aware that grief, you know, as beautiful Amy shared with me, you know, it kind of catches you in unexpected moments. And yet letting that grief not be something that's breaking me, but breaking me open. And really knowing that what I'm learning is love, and in a deeper and deeper way. And on my very first night there, before my Nana had passed away, I had a Chakradhara treatment, which is where they drip the oil onto the chakras as well as massage. It's a very powerful kind of bodywork experience. And my intuition asked me the question, how willing are you to love? And I didn't know at the time that would be the theme. I suspected it might be, but I didn't know how that was going to play out. That the theme of the retreat for me was, how willing are you to love? And really to be, as Amy said, a vulnerable leader, rather than the woman who's got her shit together and holding it all together for everyone, which I hope I did it too, but I really had to let myself feel what I was feeling and cry when I needed to cry. And yeah. I feel like I've probably talked enough, but I just really wanted to share the retreat with you and my experience of being in the retreat whilst also in that stage of grief, and the absolute paradox of life and being human. And we are so capable of taking whatever God gives to us and using it as fuel for our awakening. And that's really what everything is. That's what life is. It's all serving our awakening, even when we don't necessarily understand how or why. So thank you for letting me share. Thank you to the incredible 13 women who walked that path with me, and to the 4 mentors that I had around me who held me and held the women. And I'm sure we'll be sharing lots more photos. We've got a beautiful photo shoot with Nora Wendell on our final night, and that will be undoubtedly shared everywhere as soon as we get those pictures. Mwah. So much love to you all.